we're the Jack Quartet. We formed officially in 2005, although we met at school, at the Eastman School of Music in Rochester, New York, before that. And we actually, tonight we're playing a string quartet by Helmut Lachenmann, his third string quartet, called Grito. And it's a piece we've had in our repertoire since the beginning. In fact, the first time we performed it was actually in 2004, before we were officially the Jack Quartet. We were just students studying at Eastman. But then soon after we formed as a quartet. And the reason we're called Jack, which is an acronym of the first initials of our names, John, Ari, Chris, and Kevin, was because of Grito, which is an acronym of the Arditi Quartet for whom it was written. At the time it was written. Their members have since changed, but at the time it was an acronym. It also means scream in Italian. So when we were rehearsing Helmut Lachenmann's string quartet, we were always joking that if this piece was written for us, it'd be called Jack. That was Kevin's joke, mainly, but we were all kind of in on it. And when we finally needed a name, we just decided that there was no other better name, and it was also the piece that really brought us together. Helmut Lachenmann helped us out tremendously. Well, he still is helping us out in many ways to get us going as a quartet. He's worked with us. We've worked with him on all three of his quartets. In fact, we have a recording of all three of his quartets coming out later this year on Mode Records, which we're very excited about. Also a DVD. So we became Jack in many ways because of this piece that we're playing tonight on Maurizio Pollini's Perspective concerts.
We just have a real interest in new music, and it's sort of, I think, becoming, based in New York, there's a lot of interest in contemporary music and string quartets, and there's a lot of audience for it, and I think we've sort of built up an audience over time, sort of organically, and we've also been really, we're always trying to challenge ourselves to go in more directions and learn new types of music and not pen ourselves into one particular style, although we started doing mostly Xenakis and Lachenmann and other similar composers. We've branched out and done everything from medieval arrangements to, various styles in American music and other things. So, and I think that's helped us reach a lot of different niches.
When it comes to contemporary string quartets, something that I think we all take pride in as a group is we're always trying to find the sound of that particular composer. So when it comes to Xenakis, for one, the kind of sound that Xenakis was interested in is very different than the kind of sound we would be producing playing Beethoven or Brahms or many other different pieces. We were able to study some of the Xenakis quartets with the Arditis, who obviously worked with Xenakis quite a bit, and learned from them and from their recordings the kind of sound he was looking for. So when we learned all the Xenakis quartets, we were honing that particular sound. When we do Lachenmann, he has a very particular sound and aesthetic he's looking for as well. So when we play Lachenmann, we're in that mindset. And as Chris said earlier, we also have an interest in arrangements of pieces by medieval and Renaissance composers. It's been an ongoing project of ours, and when we play that music, we have a very different concept of sound. So I think something that performing contemporary music is something that's very good for, I think, any string quartet to pursue, is just opening up their idea to the possibilities of sound. I think, when we do go back into more standard repertoire, we definitely, hone that particular, more standard string quartet sound, and we work on that quite a bit. But I think something that is very important for string quartets to think about is that, it's not about having the one perfect quartet sound. It's about having a very a quartet sound that can change depending on what style they're playing. And I think some of the best quartets can do that.
We all went to music school, and so we've been trained and are genuinely interested in the traditional repertoire, the standard repertoire. But because of our interests in new music, there's more new music out there than we could ever actually play, and so there's not enough time in the day to pursue all of our real interests. And but we do occasionally dip into older repertoire, although it's not necessarily part of our mission, so to speak. I think that it's more just something that we're occasionally interested in, and for certain audiences, it's good to give them something that will help lure them into the rest of the program, which might be quite challenging, contemporary music.
It's important to have a matched quartet sound, because oftentimes, even if we're not playing at the same time or articulating the same points in time, we'll still be playing similar material and need to articulate it in the same way. I can think of pieces, for example, there might be some sort of complex canon where we're all playing the same material but at different times and nothing lines up, but we will rehearse it all at the same time, trying to find the right sound so we can match each other exactly.
And we have our own interests that sort of take us in all these different directions, and it's kind of like surfing the internet, you know, like you find one thing and then it leads you to another thing, and that's sort of how music works. Composers, and then also the composers we work with inform us about other composers, and it's just this huge network. And it's fun when we find new music that we feel very, very strongly about right away. Especially if it's music or a composer we've never heard of before, I find it's just so great to learn about composers that are not known very well. Like Alain Gossin, for instance, the presenter for a concert we were playing introduced us to his quartet, and we just immediately fell in love with it, and we love performing it. And it gets amazing responses from audiences. It's a perfect situation.
There are a number of places in the U.S. that are just open to what we want to do, and especially if we've formed a relationship with them and they know the Jack Quartet, you know, presents interesting, you know, experimental music or whatever, and they just want us to do our thing, and we kind of can then, you know, push these pieces that maybe audience members have not heard of. But oftentimes, if you play the music convincingly, it doesn't matter whether they've heard anything like it before. It could be something completely new, but it still will have an impact. So.